show your support for the Untold Radio Network family of shows and join in on the conversation by using super stickers and super chats on YouTube. Got a question you want answered?
Hi there, ladies and gentlemen. You know what? We have all made it through 2023.
Well, we have, yeah.
We are still alive. One
We
of the
are.
most tumultuous years you could ever imagine. That's why we called the episode A Year of Future Shock.
You know what? Every year, I think when we look back on that, because it hasn't faded in our memory, we say, oh, this was a really weird year. Every year's a weird year.
But this is a very important year,
Okay.
especially
Yeah.
for the
Oh, for
world
sure.
of the anomalous. But of course, my name's Jay Katz.
Aspasia.
Aspasia is my
Aspasia.
wife.
Yep.
And we have an extraordinary relationship. We manage, if you haven't listened to this or watched this before, we finish each other's sentences. We can't help it. 33 years of being together.
Mhm.
What a linkage. And let me just
You
remind
do become
everyone
one, don't you?
that there is such a thing as love.
Yeah.
And it is an extraordinary thing if we show kindness and we force ourselves to consider others and the relationships we're in, that there is great meaning in spending time together, isn't there?
For
You have
sure.
to find the right person.
Yeah.
It's not easy
No,
at all.
It's not.
And we feel very blessed and lucky that we've arrived at that. Now, every podcast, this is number 62.
It is. That's
we
1 year. That marks the year. No. 52 is, yeah,
year.
okay, is the year.
Okay,
Sorry.
no more comments out of you during the entire podcast. All right?
I'll just
So-
sit here quietly like a quiet sentinel.
So we
Not.
have to always state that we are broadcasting on stolen land, and what a tragic year it has been for us in this country
It's a bit sad.
in terms of the
I was
yes vote.
saddened by it, but
Yeah, I
anyway.
was really devastated
Yeah,
by it.
yeah.
And it just shows you that we need to open our eyes up and really,
I think we need to open our hearts, not our eyes. It's our
and also
hearts.
be aware of one of the most profound, if not the most continuous culture in the entire world that lived harmoniously on this continent
Mhm.
for thousands of years, dating back at least, I'd say,
At least.
80,000.
You know,
Literally, we were the cradle of civilization. All it took was a couple of hundred years to decimate, destroy that, and harm its original indigenous
Mhm.
population. So we have to speak about the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation, and we have to acknowledge and respect elders past, present, and emerging, and we will always do that. If you don't like it, turn off. It's the Truman Show. There's a billion million other podcasts on this platform
yes, there
that
is.
any human being will not be able to get through 1% of in their entire lifetime if they watched continuously.
No.
And that's why it is a year of future shock with
It
more
is.
future shock coming.
Oh,
Alvin
I want
Toffler,
Alvin Toffler is probably spinning on a rotisserie.
Hmm.
Do you know what I mean?
that book in 1970 said that we will all be suffering the after effects, the post-traumatic stress
Yeah.
of information overload.
And, here
And
we
there is
are.
more information in the world than ever.
Yeah.
But you know, one of the most astounding things is
What's that?
that when you look at YouTube,
Mm.
the majority of programs are turning into the cannibal that is media. They're eating themselves.
Yeah, they are.
And now people are lifting content from other people's programs and reacting to that.
Yeah, just
Some of
reacting
it's
to it.
clickbait,
Yeah.
but the majority of things are becoming reaction videos. So
Yeah.
it's like all of a sudden, is there anything new? Is there anything unique? Let's just grab this thing that's getting more clicks and let's throw some shade on it
Yeah.
to get some clicks ourselves.
Yeah.
And I can't believe how many clicks are drawn by people being abusive to each other and the
Well,
trauma that sets up.
We just love the car accident, don't we?
Well, the
we love to
saddest thing
see
is
Other people
you can have
going off at each other and being mean to each
you
other.
can
I don't
have
know
an
what that
audience
is.
of hundreds of people and one negative comment
Yeah.
sits with you.
Yeah.
People don't realize
It doesn't with me.
the damage that certain words do
Yeah.
and comments do and the way we affect others.
You know-
So we have to
you know
stand
how I
back
look
from
at it?
that.
I look at it as things like that have more to say about that person who's
course they are.
espousing that vitriol than the person that they're espousing it to.
What they
It's
should be
about them.
given is a mirror. and told to go
Well,
away and
and
talk to
just
themselves
talk to themselves.
and sort it out.
Because it's really weird, because if you know that person and you listen to what they're saying, you kind of go, that sounds like you're actually talking about yourself, and they usually are.
Yeah.
Can I just fix that? That's just driving me insane there.
What are you fixing? The mic? You're fixing me?
No, I
Stop.
was fixing
We're doing
a
a
little bit. I
program. We're
know,
not doing
but
manicuring.
every time I look at you, it's doing my head in. But you know what I'm like.
Yeah, I do
The
know
whole
what's-
house could be in a state of like disrepair and
It is.
chaos. And chaos, but if there's one little thing that's
Out of
just
place.
out of place that I'm looking at, I've got to fix it.
All right, thank you.
Anyway,
And you've just thrown me completely
I'm
off my
sorry.
game there. I
No,
had
you're
so
never
many
off your game.
great thoughts that
yeah,
were
go
coming
for
to
it.
me.
They'll come to
And they're
you.
going, first off,
Yeah.
we have to thank every single person that subscribed to the entire Untold Radio Network.
For sure.
We have to thank every other podcaster on that
For
network.
sure.
Dr. Dean Bertrand and
Yeah.
us
Yeah.
sit in a sea of Bigfoot parallel hominid
Yeah.
researchers.
Yes, we do.
And sometimes it's hard for us to see the air to breathe in the midst of that research. I've always been fascinated by that research,
Absolutely.
and even more today than ever. So
yeah.
I think, did I actually freeze then? I saw
We did.
myself
We
freeze.
froze for a moment. But
Yeah,
that's okay.
That's very strange. And when you were talking about our building before, I was thinking we're actually doing this slightly early to race before the rains come again.
Yep.
And the creative cloud appears.
Who is Creative Cloud?
I want to dedicate.
I don't think there's anything creative about the Creative Cloud, but anyway.
I want to dedicate this podcast to my late father, Arthur, at this time of year. Pillar to post. I get a feeling that Arthur is listening somewhere out there on the
I'm sure
megacycle
he
band.
is.
He was
Absolutely.
a shortwave operator. Always loved that equipment. And if
Yeah.
he's going to tune in back to one of his sons there, he's going to do it through those airwaves.
He is.
Look, speaking of Alvin Toffler, one of
Yeah.
the last books, if not the last book he wrote, was called The Third Wave.
Right.
So this was in the 80s, I think.
Right.
Quite a few years
Later.
after Future
Mhm.
Shock.
Mhm.
And was speaking about the three major waves that have changed humanity.
Right.
About 10,000 years ago, orthodoxy says,
Yeah.
I'd say it's a longer.
Whatever.
Agriculture came in,
Yeah.
which was an extraordinary
Overnight,
uplift.
all over the place, out of nowhere.
Unbelievable.
Got it. Yep.
That was the first wave.
Yep.
The second wave
Mhm.
was the Industrial Revolution.
right.
So the late
Yep.
1600s into
Yeah.
the 1700s there changed things, changed
Big
human
time.
behavior,
Yeah, the
changed
printing press.
interaction.
The printing press was the big one.
That changed things as well
Huge.
because all of a sudden
Mm.
newspapers created a public.
Yeah.
And you've got to really sit down and consider that, what
Mm.
that change was.
Absolutely.
Everyone was living in their singularity.
Mm.
And then all of a sudden they were the public because
Yeah.
they were all reading the paper at the same time.
So here's the thing too, because we weren't around then, we don't consider it. But at the time, all the people that used to write books and journals and any form of writing before the printing press, they all lost their jobs when the printing press came in. They became obsolete.
Well, you know what the third wave is?
What? Yeah, go.
It's
I know.
the computer, it's
Absolutely.
the internet,
Yeah,
and it is
it's
now AI.
electronic media. Yeah.
Which, we want to reverse that. We want to take that back. We can't.
We can't.
We've got to live with it.
That
it
genie.
It is going to change jobs big time.
Oh, look,
It's already changed literacy. Now, one thing I think Toffler and many other futurists have stated that it's not an ability to be literate or literacy in the way we past observed it.
Yeah.
It's the ability now to be able to learn, get rid of that learning, and then relearn again.
Something else,
because everything is changing so rapidly. And we know that with applications and technology.
But here is the thing, isn't it? It's the Darwinian adaptation. You have to adapt if you want. But the problem is...
I've got a problem with Darwin, actually.
No, but let's talk about the adaptation, not the evolution, adaptation.
Yeah,
and you have to...
Adaptation is a much better word for it.
Adapting to something. Trouble is, things are moving so fast for humans, and we are creatures of habit, and we hate change, right? So there's a lot of people that will get left behind. They won't be able to adapt to a new form of whatever it is, and they will get left behind. They're going to be your neo-Luddites.
Well, you know what? When I think back on our timeline, I have to think of people that predicted where we'd be
Yeah,
today.
absolutely. They're the people.
And one of them actually appeared in a Woody Allen film,
Mhm.
standing in a movie queue. He was Marshall McLuhan.
Yes,
now,
he
Marshall
was.
McLuhan was a Canadian philosopher
Mhm.
and probably one of the major people behind media theory.
They used to. I read in the Wikipedia that he was a future theorist, and it's like, well, somebody needs to go and change that right now, because it's not future theorist; it's future fact.
Yeah.
Everything the guy espoused has come to pass.
I think he was at the Event Horizon looking into the abyss at that time in the 60s, but he saw it coming. He said one of the biggest problematic moments is we're all going to become through the global village.
Yeah.
And his was the media is the message. The media is the massage. But it was the message.
Yeah.
His thing was we're all going to become so consumed with each other's personal
minutia,
our behavior,
because it
our
is
intricacies.
minutia. Oh my God.
And when I was speaking before about when you look on YouTube and see the literally hundreds of thousands of millions of people reacting to each other.
Yeah, but not even the
and
YouTube,
9 times
but
out of
Facebook.
10, and not in a positive way.
You know,
slandering people in the most extreme way.
I ate this, eating.
Said
I don't care what you ate. I don't care how good it looked to you at the time. I don't need to see it. It's one of 3 main meals a day that you need as fuel. It's fuel, people. It's like we become so obsessed with food as
before this photographing
it's
of
just
food.
It's fuel.
I was on a panel at the Seymour Centre, and they said, "What do you remember of the 80s?" I said, "I don't remember purchasing or eating one meal.
One single meal.
It was just fuel for my creativity.
You never thought about it.
It never became a moment.
It's like I need to eat something, and you just ate whatever.
And that's nothing against foodies and chefs and great food.
No, there is. It is. We've come no.
Yeah. Well,
it's and you know what? Here's the thing too. It's only people in the first world that can be obsessed and really get into food and cooking and stuff like that. The third world, they can't even get any food. So what are we talking about?
And I must interject there, that little moment of humor is actually your facetiousness.
Absolutely.
About the ignorance of people to the plight of the majority of people on this planet. I mean, we have our Baron here, Gina Reinhardt, and the other day I was reading that she earns $2 million an hour.
Yeah.
That is obscene, I mean, you can throw pornography in the bin. That is true pornography. That is obscene that people are starving when someone can earn that much money easily, because money begets money. But if you don't have money, you'll never get it.
You don't beget anything.
People like that should be going door to door with every single cent they have and apologizing to every person on the planet.
They're not going to.
And paying them off.
Let's go to
okay, so what I was going to say about Marshall McLuhan is that he was at that point of the precipice and he could see the folly, the stupidity, and so many people misinterpreted him because he was speaking about the future. They thought he was obsessed with the future. He was excited by the future.
No.
He's wanted the future, the movement, the applications, the technologies to just calm down, to just stop for a while, stop creating new applications, new forms of Windows, stop doing that. Let humanity have the time to adapt properly, absorb it and work it into their lives.
Yeah, but the people that are making it.
It's built in obsolescence.
Well, the people
it's the light bulb conspiracy.
It's not going to make them money. If they stop, they're not going. Their income is going to stop for a little while, and they're not going to be able to amass a fortune that they're never going to be able to spend in a million lifetimes. They need more money, more power. So they don't care about humanity keeping up, everybody keeping up. All they care is to see the dollar signs get bigger and bigger in their bank accounts. And that.
Listen, the Eagle has landed. That's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
Instead of going out and buying a package book, of which there have been 5,000 copies printed, you will go to the telephone, describe your interests, your needs, your problems, and say, I'm working now on the history of Egyptian arithmetic. I know a bit of Sanskrit. I'm qualified in German, and I am a good mathematician. They said, it'll be right over. And they at once Xerox, with the help of computers from the libraries of the world, all the latest material just for you personally, not as something to be put out on the bookshelf. They send you the package as a direct personal service. This is where we're heading under electronic information conditions. Products increasingly are becoming services.
Allow me to introduce myself. I'm a man of wealth.
Global village is not created by the motor car or even by the airplane. It's created by instant electronic information movement. The global village is at once as wide as the planet and as small as a little town where everybody is maliciously engaged and poking his nose into everybody else's business. The global village is a world in which you don't necessarily have harmony. You have extreme concern with everybody else's business and much involvement in everybody else's life. It's a sort of Ann Landers column writ large.
Another strange effect of this electric environment is the total absence of secrecy.
I still have a dream. It is a dream deeply rooted in the American dream.
The new is always made up of the old, or rather what people see in the new is always the old thing, the rearview mirror. The future of the future is the present. And this is something that people are terrified of.
She speaks by telephone to head office, where her variations are taken down directly onto cards.
I try not to have any private meanings, Frank, but I think of technologies as extensions of our own bodies, of our own faculties, whether clothing, housing, and more familiar kinds of technologies like wheels, stirrups, such extensions of various parts of the body. The need to amplify the human powers in order to cope with various environments.
I have, by the way, a peculiar reading habit that I developed in recent years. I read only the right-hand page of serious books. If it's a frivolous, relaxing book, I read every word. But serious books, I read on the right-hand side only because I've discovered enormous redundancy in any well-written book. And I find that by reading only the right-hand page, this keeps me very wide awake, filling in the other page out of my own noodle.
Nieuw was de hoofdtelefoon met ingebouwde stereo FM radio.
Den Uyl in een speciale televisietoespraak aan dat benzine op de bon gaat.
Forgive my impertinence, but has anybody asked you why you are sometimes difficult to understand?
Because I use the right hemisphere when they're trying to use the left hemisphere.
Okay, well, simple. I'll try and get back on the left.
You see that when the people ordinarily people are trained to try to follow you and to connect everything you say with what they last heard. They're not prepared to use their wits. They're only prepared to use the idea they picked up the first time and try to connect it to another idea.
Yeah.
So the great thinkers of the world might be gone, quite a few of them, but they're still with us there on the media network. And what we need to do is what the data has stated, what Guy Debord, the situation has stated. We need to recut. We need to eat media itself. But when you cut it, Burroughs said this, you actually show the truth about control.
Absolutely.
And so we just had that little piece there. I'm not sure whether it's from Marcus Street Network or the Real Back One Global Village. Check out Real Back One, though. I've never seen such a great archives. There's also a Sasquatch TV archives on YouTube. Go and look at that site. There is so much rare, lost newsreel material, documentaries, and people.
Oh,
And
no.
we have to acknowledge this year that we lost one of the major elder statesmen, and that is Peter Byrne. And
Oh,
here
yeah.
he is with the late Grover Krantz.
I think it would be morally wrong. I see no reason. In fact, I talked to a small boy, a schoolboy recently, and he said some people say shoot one to prove that they're there. And then he said, supposing the one they shoot is the last one.
Well, my answer to that is if they become extinct, so what? If they're not proven, it doesn't make any difference. We have a lot of animals that became extinct in the past, and there's nothing we can do about it. And if this animal remains unaccepted, who cares if it becomes extinct?
They're obviously rare. There are not very many of them. And as we see them, they could be a hominid form. It could be a man. To shoot one would be totally wrong. And we are totally opposed to this philosophy.
Good on you, Mr. Byrne, and may you rest in peace. Or
And who
may
was that
you
guy who went,
oscillate.
we don't care.
That's
So
Grover
many people
Krantz, and he was a bit more
Yeah.
pragmatically facetious
just
at
a little bit,
times. And look,
Maybe if we shot him, then who
No, no,
cares?
no.
Yeah, well, you know.
You don't need to. But, you know, the point of fact is you don't need to shoot anyone.
No.
You just need to make sure
Or
that the
anything.
counterpoint can exist and breathe in a world of many other counterpoints.
Mhm.
And no one has the right or the wrong opinion.
No.
But I do like the fact that Peter Byrne was a big game hunter
Yeah.
and then just reached a point where he realized, good heavens, I need to actually consider
Mhm.
the value of all that wildlife around me.
Yeah.
And then he started to take up the search with the infamous Tom Schlick there.
Yep.
They were up there in the Himalayas with
Mhm.
Hillary. And a lot of sort of rebel rousing went on between those two
I'd say
because
they
I
did.
think Tom
There's
Schlick
nothing else to
had
do
a
up there.
huge amount of freaking money.
Mm.
But talking about not throwing shade
Yeah.
and losing great researchers,
Mhm.
I want to see if I can find the Scott. Have I got some images? Yeah. For the late Scott Carpenter.
All right,
He's
okay,
very
yeah.
close to David Pilates and very close to our man on the Untold Network that has one of the highest rating shows, Sasquatch Outpost, Jim Myers.
Jim Myers, yeah.
And his beautiful wife and
Mhm.
his incredible crew. Now, Scott was a very gentle man.
Mhm.
And Scott was one of those people that quite a bit of shade was thrown on because he was able to accept the esoteric aspects of this parallel hominid.
Yeah.
He was not going in with the medical rotary saw to take their head off to prove its existence. He wrote many books, and he was involved in the controversial DNA study by Melba Catcham.
Mhm.
But, you know, the point is Scott leaves a family behind.
Yeah.
And if you go up, you can actually look at the incredible work that Scott did on YouTube, simply under Scott Carpenter.
Mhm.
But you can also look at his son's site. Now, his son, a couple of months ago, did a piece at 4 a.m. in the morning on his porch,
Right.
speaking about his sorrow for the missing of his dad. Passed away at 59, sudden heart attack out
Yeah.
of the blue.
Mhm.
And he's wondering what needs to be done with that research. Well, I believe it needs to go into the hands of either Jim or David Pilates.
Sure.
Those people. I mean, Scott was to be the first guest on Sasquatch Outpost.
Right.
So there are many other researchers that have passed away this
Mhm.
year, but
Yeah.
Scott is someone that we should all stand back and consider how valuable life is
Yeah.
and how easily it can be taken away from
Well,
us.
yeah.
And so before we throw shade or think about people's different opinions on this subject matter, just consider the people around them and the effect and the harm it may do.
Yeah.
The other one was a colleague. We were so excited. We got him on our podcast.
We did.
Number 5 was
Yep.
the extraordinary Robbie Graham,
Mhm.
who wrote those 2 profound books,
Yeah.
Silver Screen Sources, which I think is probably going to go
brilliant.
down in history, one of the more remarkable books of the infiltration of media, television, big screen, and print by intelligence agencies wanting to suppress the reality of UFOs. And here was a book that he edited
Mhm.
that was really controversial
Yeah.
in the way that
reframing the debate.
So there's just 3 people out of a plethora of many, and sorry for the people that we may have left behind there in that regard.
Well, everybody else is going to do, but these are the people that, you know.
So if you want to go and search, you'll find quite cheaply a copy of Alvin Toffler's book, Future Shock. But I believe that Third Wave is just important.
Absolutely.
Now, getting into No Skin in the Game, here's a few other books to look for. Please go out and get a copy of this. Tom O'Neill certainly had no skin in the game, but realized he was looking at massive social engineering.
Absolutely.
And again, our author, who was connected there as a producer to Thames TV, David Wilhan, I'm beginning to notice already this book is so powerful that the algorithm is actually removing it from your first searches.
I know. Isn't that bizarre?
No, it's the truth of it all. So be aware to play that game. Search deep, high and low, and you will come across astounding works, and this one will blow your mind. When those 2 books collide, sparks are going to fly. And of course, we have to go back to one of our most profound guests. All our guests are profound, but the great Peter Lavinda. We were very humbled by the fact he gave us 2 interviews.
Yes.
Especially the one on Kennedy.
Yeah.
His story about infiltrating the funeral for Robert Kennedy is unbelievable.
Hilarious.
Please go back and listen to that. And we must not forget one of the greatest people in our heart in Bigfoot research, which is Christopher Noel. We believe this book is groundbreaking.
Absolutely.
It's about dark energy and dark matter being a source of non-material.
That's the veil.
Yeah, that is the veil. And of course, he came up with the great autistic savant theory on Sasquatch, which I think hits lots of points.
Absolutely.
But let's go to the man behind Untold Radio. And the incredible achievement was the crowdfunding live on our platform this year for the documentary with Jeff Meldrum, who I believe has not been well. So our heart goes out to Jeffrey Meldrum, who wrote the first book, Legend Meets Science, and became part of the incredible Monster Quest TV series, one of the most remarkable documentaries you can imagine, Sasquatch, Legend Meets Science. Well, they raised a humble 80,000
Well, they got
US,
their target,
and
which
that
was
is
pretty
nothing,
amazing. No,
because if they were raising 800,000 US, that'd be much more within the ballpark of what a documentary these days is going to cost.
Absolutely.
So you can still go online, go to Untold Radio online, and you can find somewhere if you've got a little bit of overabundance. Someone's throwing a little bit too much money at you. You've sent money to the Save the Children funds or whatever ones that are effective, that are not thieving that money from people. Throw a little bit more towards Doug Hychek and the Untold Radio Network, because this documentary
meets science
will actually, in many ways, break the back on what is left of that minuscule amount of ridicule that I know about. Here's a great little this was DeviantArt did this drawing, which was based on the notion of Legend Meets Science.
Beautiful.
It reminds me of our Dr. John Barackman there that is doing his show that we listen to every week.
Yeah.
He is a proper scientist online and working us through so many great subjects. Our heart embraces you. And of course, Dr. Dean ended up it was the end of the Incredible Mysterious Library, which really upset me, but he did a piece on that which was just astounding as well.
Yeah.
So I guess what we need to do now, we've got that little bit off our chest, is go to one of the major stories that kicked off this year. And this is an abundant, you know what, investigating the anomalous, ufology, cryptids, specters, ghosts, or whatever.
Yeah.
Investigating those things.
Yeah.
It always pays off.
It does.
You know, I mean, in the late 80s, we had Bob Lazar, whether you believe that story or not. I still think it's highly questionable at times, but it's fascinating.
Well, I don't know. I'm not
for a long time.
I don't think it's questionable, but I definitely think that he
John
was.
Lear behind the scenes was
Well,
very
he was definitely handpicked by somebody within the organisation to go out there and, you know, espouse these stories for a reason.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I don't know what that reason, well, I kind of do. They were trying to, you know, put on the back page the fact that, you know, Area 51 was just toxic and people were dying and all that
That's
sort of
right.
stuff.
All the
So that it's like,
radioactive.
let's get this guy out there talking about UFOs and crash retrieval, and we're back engineering them, and that'll get people onto that instead of this really important story.
But how wild is it now, over 30 years later, to hear those stories articulated in Congress?
Yeah, I know.
I never thought I would see a day like that in my life.
Didn't you?
Didn't think it was going to reach that point.
No, I think eventually it was going to come.
The late 90s, we got the alien autopsy.
Yeah, when there's something. Yeah, but when there's something there, when there's something that's real, that's there, that people every day, people are seeing all the time. Eventually, that dam has to burst.
Yep.
It just can't stay back there.
But this must be
hold it back.
the first time ever. And please correct me if I'm wrong, but I never saw anything like I saw in February for that number of weeks.
Yeah.
Where there were 4 major UFO intercepts
no, we never
going
saw anything
down.
like that.
That has never happened publicly. No. And I mean, they were stated at some stage that they were UAPs.
Yeah.
I will always use Edward Ruppelt.
UFOs.
Look at that incredible book, The Report on Flying Saucers. Go back to the original. Don't get the second printing. Go for the first printing. They redacted things in that second printing.
Yeah.
That man
posthumously,
and that
didn't
book
they? Posthumously, they redacted
amazing.
Stuff.
Yeah, he died very quickly after that, which is really troubling. So, unidentified flying object, you don't have to militarize that. You don't have to change it for today to UAP. What difference does it make? It's virtually the same statement.
It is the same statement, but they're trying to make it out that it's from a different group of people now.
Okay.
That, they want the truth out there.
So what is the coincidence? Before we become aware of what Leslie Keane, Ralph Blumenthal, Ross Coulthard, and numerous other people doing behind the scenes, Jeremy Corbell, George Knapp, preparing David Grush to come out publicly as one of the most highly credentialed people. Let's not forget Colonel Corso.
Yeah.
But as what was happening behind the scenes.
Yeah.
When this story hits, all of a sudden they have no problem in talking about UFOs, firing them down. And you know what? Of course, it looks like a couple with balloons, right?
Yeah.
And balloons, I have to step back in my initial reaction. Balloons are effective surveillance weapons.
Absolutely.
They cost so little. You can have a payload on there, and they just, people might see them innocuously and not consider them to be.
But how
threat.
do they? Unless they've got some sort of mechanism on there too, because they would
Tiny
be
little bit of propulsion area that can use the wind drafts. Supposedly, I don't know.
But
I'm
if the
talking
wind
way
changes
outside
and
of
it
my
goes, yeah,
scholarship.
you are, because if the wind changes, your face will stay the way. No, if the wind changes, it'll go off. It won't go where you want it to go.
Well,
it is at the mercy of the weather.
Okay. Why does love create so many moments of rudeness?
Because it can.
First shot missed on the 4th balloon. So we're talking about the balloon that was downed over Lake Huron. The first balloon, the Chinese spy balloon that went down over the Atlantic on the South Carolina coast, that shot hit. The second one over Alaska, on the north coast of Alaska, that one hit. The third one that landed in the Yukon, that one hit. On the 4th one over Lake Huron, first shot missed, second shot.
It sounds like we're all going out to the ballpark and trying
How
to
much
see
was every hit? But
Yeah.
it's like nearly $500,000.
Break one, blast one. That is a T kill. The balloon is completely on his tower.
But it's swearing then when he said that balloon is completely, But let's see the conclusion to all of
From the
this.
Metro, it's about misusing an overpowered missile. And Nick, you must empathise with that.
Oh, yeah. I mean, this is about the UFO shot down by a $400,000 Sidewinder missile, but it could have actually just been a $13 hobby balloon. It's a slight overkill there.
What, the aliens are sending a hobby balloon?
Well, that's it. I mean, I think it could be a test from aliens just to see how we react. And they're like, no, don't go down yet. They're not smart enough yet. They're shooting balloons with $400,000 missiles. And the only good thing about it is it at least makes me believe that our military could take this thing out. You know, when Sunak was boasting about typhoon planes, I'm like, but we could actually take out a $13 balloon. All we need is a really long ladder and some pins.
Tell me this, though, Nick. You know, if it was a UFO, if it was aliens, why are we shooting at them? You know, this is not hospitable. This is not the humane way to behave. Shouldn't we try and engage with them?
No, we're shooting because we think it's the Chinese.
Oh, is that what it is?
Then we find out it's aliens, and now they're mad.
I would assume it's aliens and just, you know, not shoot at them because they've probably got laser cannons and that sort of stuff.
Apparently, Joe Biden was flying the jet. That's why they missed the first shot. No, I'm joking. But if you think about it, I thought this whole stuff has been crazy anyway, because China, think of all the technology, everything. Why are they sending balloons? Why would they have a balloon? They'd be like, let's sneak over there. All the technology in the world and everything.
Well, it's because it's the perfect crime.
It's the last thing we're expecting.
Yeah, you look at a balloon, you think it can't be the Chinese. They're far too sophisticated for that.
But yeah, I mean, like, I think.
I'll tell you what.
Yeah.
We need to secede. We need to find sovereignty. We really do. Those English. Let's keep going with this.
Yeah, let's.
This week, whistleblower David Grush told News Nation that non-human craft has been recovered and kept by the United States in a task force retrieval program.
The UAP task force was refused access to a broad crash retrieval program.
When you say crash retrieval, what do you mean?
These are retrieving non-human origin technical vehicles, you know, call it spacecraft if you will, non-human, exotic origin vehicles that have either landed or crashed.
We have spacecraft.
You know what I love about this?
What's that?
Is that we may be the only continent in the southern hemisphere, and we're so far away from the US. And what is happening there with our screen, Aspasia?
You keep
an eye.
it.
No.
Yeah.
What do you mean by I keep moving?
Well, because the way you're...
Just throw me under the bus.
Every time.
Anyway.
Yeah.
And you know what? It's an Australian that leads
Ross.
the charge.
Yeah.
And, you know, no matter what we think about Ross, and we've spoken about him, maybe he's getting a little too Icarus, he's flying close to the sun, the wings are going to burn. You have to be proud. And you have to say that Ross Coulthard has done an incredible job that just keeps growing and growing and growing.
It is 6 months to the day since former Air Force intelligence officer turned whistleblower David Grush came on News Nation and made an earth-shattering claim. He alleged the U.S. government has a top-secret program that has been studying and reverse engineering non-human original technical vehicles, basically UFOs, since before World War II.
We have spacecraft from another species.
We do, yeah.
How many?
Quite a number.
You're kidding.
No. I thought it was totally nuts, and I thought at first I was being deceived. It was a ruse. People started confiding in me. They approached me. I have plenty of current and former senior intelligence officers that came to me, many of which I knew almost my whole career, that confided in me they were a part of a program. They named the program. I've never heard of it.
He'd never heard of the program, but now the whole world has, because not only did that interview put Grush on the map, it put him in the hot seat on Capitol Hill. Grush testified in front of Congress alongside 2 other military veterans, all 3 telling lawmakers and the public what they knew about.
And what a moment that was,
Yeah.
which led to NASA and the creation of Arrow, the UAP team.
Yeah.
It's just unbelievable.
Yeah.
And congressional hearings,
Yes,
which I
yes.
believe now they're stating, and people like Lou Alexandro has stated that there is strife in the blowback that's coming from the Pentagon in
Right.
releasing this information to the public, because there are high credentialed officials within the US military that believe that the world of the anomalous and the ufological is demons and devils. They're fundamentalist Christians, and they're worried about that. But you know what?
Yeah.
The whistleblowers are not going
We have
away.
another exclusive interview with another credible source who is backing up Grush's claims. He says he experienced something similar. Retired U.S. Navy Rear Admiral Tim Gallaudet worked at the highest levels of government, leading the National Oceanic Atmospheric Administration under President Trump. Tonight, he tells News Nation special correspondent Ross Coulthard that while serving his country, there were attempts to cover up UFO sightings by members of the military. Here's his story.
Tim, you've said publicly that you think UFOs, UAPs, are the story of the century.
We're being visited by non-human intelligence with technology we really don't understand, and with intentions we don't understand at all either.
Now that really does surprise me to hear that from a former very high-ranking flag officer in the US Navy, to actually say you're stating categorically that you believe NHI, non-human intelligence, are real.
Absolutely.
Tim Gallaudet has spent a career.
Okay.
Tim Gallaudet should be honoured and given a medal by the public for that.
Yeah.
I think that's an incredible moment, and so should David Grush, and so should Ryan, and every other, David Fraser, all be.
So where do you think next year we're going to be next year?
Well,
in
I
this
don't.
story?
I don't wish to ever predict anything.
Do you think that a lot more people are going to start, like high ups, because
Well,
they
you've
did,
just seen it then.
Yeah, I know, but they like a lot. Like when I say a
I
lot
can't
more,
predict it. I can't
enough
predict it
that they
because
you can't say no. This is
I'm not
just
saying anything because over the years and decades of research,
Yes.
I have nearly choked to death and got emphysema from every smoking gun that's appeared.
this is true, but it's
It's bubbling like it's
It
never
is.
bubbled
It is.
before.
It is.
And I have to thank those people at the debrief.
Yeah.
I have to actually lord over Ross and David and Ryan and David Fraser,
Mhm,
all the people that have come forward. They
Yeah.
are risking so much.
Yeah.
Our Rear Admiral there.
Yeah, but hasn't the government now? Didn't they do a call out saying if you were in
but
some
that material
program,
remains anonymous and classified.
if you were in some program,
Mm.
secret program, dealing with downed UFOs or UAPs or whatever you want to call them now, that they want you to come forward and that you'll be okay. But it's like there's two different governments. That's what's
People
going
need
on
to
there.
go out there and support Ross, and
Yeah.
he's working hard in Australia here to open the lid on it because
Mhm.
the Australian government, the RAAF,
Oh, they don't give a.
they are
don't
so
care.
silent. It's
Oh, they do-
ridiculous.
well-
and he's asking people to write to our members
Yeah.
and start to exercise that.
Yeah.
But also think, as I've stated before and you stated before,
Mm.
we have faced disclosure
Yeah.
from every eyewitness we've ever spoken to.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it is a complex, convoluted,
Yeah.
anomalous world out there. I
Mm.
think we live on a planet that we've been led to believe is rather prosaic when it's absolutely the opposite. Now, Ross's book, based on his series that can be seen on the TV, part of the ATN7 network,
Mhm.
has been expanded
Yep.
and revised and
Yep.
is well worth purchasing. We need to buy a copy of that because we might be able to get it
Yeah,
autographed.
just what we need.
Here
more
we
books
are
in the
with,
house.
with Ross.
That was our lunch date with him. We
Yeah.
got some really interesting
We got
information.
some inside
some real
dirt.
dirt, but we can't talk. We're not going to.
Just now.
Well, it's
we
not.
Hope,
I mean, it's his story to tell, not ours.
we hope we will get an interview.
Because here's the thing. I thought, because I had never heard of him, because was he on 60 Minutes? Did he do
yes,
stuff?
yeah.
So, we haven't watched any mainstream television for
For a
so long.
while.
It's a long, long time now. So I'd never heard of him. So he came out of, I don't know
The
where.
blue for you.
He did come out of the blue for me. I didn't
You
know who
spoke
he
to
was.
him about this, and you can
Yeah, I
state
did.
this.
Yes. And I spoke to him and I said, well,
Because you were very cynical initially.
I
To
was.
say the least.
I was gonna grill him. You know what I mean? And I did. And I said to him, when did
You're
you
a great griller.
I said, when did you start looking into this stuff? And he was like, he said that he'd had an
Been at it for
amazing
decades.
sighting when he was young,
Yes.
right? Which got him interested. But then he became a news reporter, right?
Right.
And he wanted to do some stories on this stuff, but they said, if you do, your career's over.
Yeah, and he's
So-
copping a lot of shade now from people like
Absolutely.
Paul.
So what he
I'm not
did
gonna go
was
into names,
what
actually,
he did
but
was
it's dreadful the shade he's copping.
can you let me finish, please?
Maybe not.
So he went underground with his research and looking into it, and just did the stories that were, mainstream stuff that he wasn't going to have a problem with, and just for over the years, and was collecting stuff, would speak to people. He spoke to prime ministers and all kinds of people who actually said to him, this is real.
Confirmed it.
But we can't talk about it because we've been shut down. So a prime minister of a country, so obviously it's a Commonwealth country, only prime ministers are in Commonwealth countries.
Yeah, thank you for
right?
that, Aspasia.
But, you can tell your which one it is, said we were told by the US that we had to shut it down. We had to shut it down, and they did. So he's had knowledge from real high up people. Like, I mean, how can you get higher up than a president? Obviously you can, but that these things were real, but he could never report on them. So he'd been there years and years and years collecting and gathering and squirreling all this information away until it's now, I think, with the Nimitz in 2014, was it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think also we saw him when we toured Don Schmidt.
Yes, we did. Yes, he did come to the Don Schmidt. Yeah.
And we were aware then that something was happening behind the scenes.
Absolutely, which was in 2019.
And if you count your lucky stars, one of the most important people when it comes to is there validity to crash retrievals is Don Schmidt.
Yeah.
It goes way back to J. Allen Hynek, the Center for UFO Studies.
Yes.
And if you keep your fingers crossed, we will have him in our next podcast.
That'd be great.
Number 63.
That'd be awesome. Anyway,
live from the US, and then he's also threatening us with.
Look, this will be my
the one interview you want to do. Aspera was on the image.
Sorry, maybe that'll be number 69.
Roy Finnis, the star of the Invaders. That's who we're hoping for.
Yeah. Anyway,
I think we're chasing.
Actually, I just realised I'm the one who's doing that.
Yeah.
And I blamed you for it.
What's that?
Moving the computer.
Yeah, well, you always do that, and that's the joy of love.
All right.
Now, one of the heroes of 2023 when it comes to the anomalous is the gentleman we were introduced to through this incident.
Yes.
Which were the stories in mid-year that started to come out.
They were bizarre.
About Peru.
Yes.
And aliens.
Aliens.
That were, hold on, I think I've got it written down here.
I'm sure you do.
Peruvian aliens, jet packing, claim jumping, gold digging, face peeling.
Right.
The Pelacaras.
They're your buzzwords.
Did you like that?
They're your hashtags.
Yeah. So here, let's have a look at Timothy Alberino.
Yep.
Who has written the book Birthright. Now, I would love to interview him. I believe Timothy is a Christian, which influences his research.
Sure.
It doesn't matter to us whatsoever. We are very spiritual people.
Absolutely.
And I believe that Christianity is all based on your actions,
not
your freaking statements.
Not your
written
yap
word.
yap.
Yeah. And
don't tell me, show me.
What did Timothy do? He packed up the crew and said, I don't know about this, but I want to support the people in this remote village.
Find out.
And let's find out now. There is a site I need to give a little bit of acknowledgement to here.
Yes.
When it comes to Mr. Alberino, and I can't find it. So let's go into this piece and I'll speak about it at the end. All right?
Peru is under attack
Thank you.
by an alien race they call the Pelacaras, a.k.a. the face peelers. This has been going on since August and has been a major concern for many of the Peruvian villagers who have seen their family members have their face literally peeled off by these beings. As seen before in the videos, these villagers go out up in arms, ready to fire, ready to shoot, ready to kill, because they don't know what the heck it is that is attacking them. Now today, the incredible Timothy Alberino has gone down to investigate. He not only went in to see exactly what was going on and try to see for his own eyes, but he started interviewing the villagers and investigating exactly what's going on, getting probably the best description of the Pelacaras.
I was surprised by how many of the villagers had actually encountered the so-called Pelacaras face to face. The assailants are tall. Most estimates describe them as being considerably taller than me, standing somewhere between 6.5 to 7 feet, perhaps even up to 8.
He said 8 feet tall, and some of the villagers are calling these mantis-type aliens. Could you imagine something like this just towering over you? Ugh.
They are arrayed in black armored bodysuits and wear large, elongated helmets that cover the entirety of their faces with yellow-tinted, almond-shaped eye lenses.
Those poor, devastated people in Peru, how would you stand up to that? It sounds insane. He even went as far as asking them about their craft and ships.
The fuselage of the craft is shaped somewhat like an acorn, with the narrow part being the nose and the wider part the aft. They're about the length of a private jet, but much wider, and in the place of wings, they have small, rounded protrusions which fold open and deploy a series of rapidly blinking lights.
Honestly, the rapidly blinking light description is why I added that UFO in the beginning. For whatever reason, it just reminded me of this. But y'all, this is in-depth and incredible. I don't want to take away from what Timothy did. So I'm going to have this whole video linked in the description below, as well as a link to his channel. He did such an
And we have to thank the one and only beautiful Chaos Moogle.
Yep.
So it's Chaos with MOOGLE. But what we will do is create a link in the bottom of our show notes.
And you can go
because
and check out.
I searched the web to get the best cut up of Timothy Alberino's investigation.
Yeah.
And we will link to Timothy's site as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah.
Go and purchase that book, Birthright.
Yeah.
Get on the case of the real world
There's
Indiana
something really
Jones.
bizarre going on there, for sure.
This guy
Peru.
is so profound, so sensitive. He took down friends of his, I think S-men, members of special forces.
Yeah.
They were there for at least 3 to 4 days.
Yeah.
They brought food, they brought supplies, they brought medical stuff.
Yeah.
They actually got all this money together and assisted that community
Yeah.
when the government even
They
hadn't
actually,
gone in there and
yeah,
done
they
that.
actually got the guys and their weapons, and
Their
they
weapons were so friggin' dangerous.
But
and
they trained
arcane.
them in how to, do the perimeter
Searches, the nighttime
and
maneuvers.
guarding the village and stuff.
Because
so,
something is going on there. And
Big
if you
time.
look back to the research by people that brought out David Grush, like Leslie Keenan and her astounding book, you will find that down in that area,
yeah,
that dense canopy, which I doubt anyone late at night could be flying in on a floating
anything.
platform or
flying
something.
in on anything.
Yeah, and with Fleur, they would be down on the ground within seconds.
Absolutely.
That this was not happening just there. It was in
No.
Brazil as
Yeah,
well.
absolutely.
They have we spoke about that
It's
incident
happened
in our podcast
over the years a lot. I remember in the 90s there was a flap at the time.
All right,
happening as
so
well.
we will link you to the hour and 30 minutes, 40 minutes, 50
You're gonna
minutes of
listen to it. It's
Timothy
fascinating.
Alberino.
We watched
It
it
is
all.
one of the most profound things we've ever seen.
Yeah,
Really brilliantly put together.
Yeah.
And our heart reaches
And he
out
interviews
to him
the people that actually saw this stuff. So
that have
it's
had
not
the
getting
event.
it second or third hand. It's like getting it straight from the witnesses, from the horse's mouth.
And there was that young girl there. She was about
I know.
15
Yeah, I
and
know,
she
the poor
nearly
little
had
thing.
supposedly her face
Face
peeled.
peeled. Yeah, she got
Let's
the
have a
top on her.
look. Now, I don't know whether there's no way that you and I can analyze this properly. I just came across this yesterday. It's very incredibly new footage from down there.
Yeah.
It's been put up by an Indian gentleman on the site. Just check out and tell me what you think. Could this be authentic footage out of Peru? Doesn't look CG'd to me, but that again is an
Well,
assumption and
you just don't
speculation. You
know.
can't say that these days.
No, you can't.
But it's doing the sort of things that they speak about, objects dropping down from other objects, these guys coming out of
separating.
those objects.
Yeah.
It's rather weird and rather interesting. And, you know, I think that even though we live in a world of so much hoaxing and AI and CG and Photoshop, that we still need to search extensively to see at moments if we have.
Well, you can't
uncovered-
discount anything straight
No, you
away. You
can't.
can't look at
You
something like, oh
can't.
no, that's you really got to do an analysis. And I mean, you know, usually I can see from something. I can either go, nah, that doesn't sit right with me, or go, you know, the hair on the back
Your
of my neck will
intuition.
stand up, and I'll go, that.
And that doesn't
there's
mean you're
something there.
right.
No,
but
that
it
doesn't mean
does
you're
mean
right.
that
But
it can lead to
it's
more
obviously
research.
touching. You know, it's like pushing some sort of button in me, going, I think there might be something to that. But
All
anyway,
right, let's have a
Hey,
slow
Untold
commercial
Radio
break.
Network fans. Want exclusive perks and to support our channel? Introducing our YouTube membership program with 3 amazing levels. Get loyalty badges that level up to different cryptids the longer you're a supporter. How cool is that? You'll also get access to custom Bigfoot emojis and priority in chat. Upgrade to Backstage Pass for exclusive wallpapers, photos, status updates, discounted books, and merchandise. Go all in with the producer level for everything mentioned plus member shoutouts. Ready for an enhanced experience? Join now, pick your membership level, and let's make this journey even more exciting together.
This journey is so exciting together,
It
and
is.
we don't intend to give up no matter what happens to us. We're in the midst of the most extreme weather in Sydney. It goes from extreme heat to flooding our back archives. I wanted you to stay down there where we were, Aspasia.
It's all right. Well, I can go straight back down. Not a problem.
You're always a little edgy, aren't you?
I am.
Yeah. Okay. Now, I think it's important that we do bring up another incident, that coincidence, which is something I don't trust. I'm highly suspicious of.
It's not that you don't trust it, but when they say, oh, it's a coincidence, it's like, yeah, I don't think it's a coincidence.
Are you ever going to let me finish the sentence?
No.
And I was moving into a flow there.
Okay.
I'm suspicious of the skies. I'm suspicious of authority.
Yeah.
I'm suspicious of government.
Mm-hmm.
I'm never suspicious of my wife because she
shouldn't
just
be.
slams it at me and tells me the way it is. But I was suspicious of the timing of the release of the story that was recorded on police body cam out of Las Vegas.
Yeah, that story.
That was virtually at the same time that the Grush story broke.
Yeah, right.
Do you remember that?
Yes, I do.
Yeah,
I do. The Las Vegas
Las Vegas incident had happened 3 to 4 weeks prior to that.
Yes.
And then that evening, again, with another name we're aware of, or maybe on a similar network that person's working on, George Knapp, who we spoke about when we sent the film crew to Bob Lazar in the 90s.
That's right.
John Lear, Bob Lazar, Gene Huff, and George Knapp.
Yeah.
It's a little bit of collusion.
The gang of
occurring
four.
there. And I wouldn't trust
any of them.
Well, I don't know. I
Any
think
of
the
them.
words of John Lear were a bit worrisome at times. But anyway,
That guy, I tell you.
the place to go to extract the most authentic, and again, it's like Tim O'Neill with Chaos, the book. It's like our book, Mind Games on John Lennon. These people had no skin in the game.
None of
Doug Popper was probably one of the only true honest cops out there, and that is an overstatement. Come on.
Yeah.
But Doug is one of those cops that have fought corruption.
Yeah.
Private investigator. He worked in the casinos in Vegas. This incident occurred very close to where he was living. So all of a sudden you've got this PI that has no interest whatsoever in UFOs, trying to diagnose the story of
What's going
Angel and this family with 8 to 9 foot aliens in their backyard after, well, the police did capture an object.
Yeah, they
didn't capture it crashing in that backyard, but they captured what looked like a meteorite coming down. Very quickly after that, a 911 call was made.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not sure, but I want you to go. If you're curious about the truth of this, go to the Doug Popper, P-O-P-P-A, I think, or P-O-P-P-O. We better check that,
That's
actually.
Papu.
Oh, that's Papu, actually. Let me just check this here. The Doug Popper podcast. You need to go to the Doug Popper
Have you found
podcast. No, I haven't, but I will when we...
Did you write it down? I'll find it.
Okay.
Give it to me.
All right.
You
Gee
keep
whiz.
talking.
All right. In the meantime, let's look at the man, Buckminster Fuller, who created the geodesic dome, the Bucky Ball. It is P-O-P-P-A.
Popper.
Popper.
Yeah, Doug Popper podcast. Yeah.
One of the most honest, or one of the few honest men left in the world. His diagnosis of
the incident
is
in Vegas.
Absolutely hilarious.
It was at the end of April, wasn't it?
Yeah. No. I think we don't give me dates.
No, it was. I remember. It was at the end of April. It came out.
A great increase in the scientific knowledge, thanks to him from brawn work to do simply brain work.
I see humans around the world having one very, very important function. You cannot have mass production unless you have mass consumption. The more consumers, the bigger your undertaking. As we really come to automation, which can really do the physical work, people don't have any significance whatsoever anymore as muscle or automatons, muscle machines. They have only significance as consumers. Whoever has the most customers is going to win in the great industrial battles. This is very important.
That's frightening. And that's Buckminster.
That is Buckminster.
Yeah. And so
the biggest consumers is China. Hello.
Let's
You've
go to
been
Marshall.
writing about the mass media for a good many years, and now you're an object of the mass media. How has this changed your view of it, if at all?
Let me instead explain why this has happened.
Because, you see, suddenly, if you've noticed, the mood of North America has changed very drastically. Things like the safety car couldn't have happened 10 years ago.
Why is that?
Now, it's because people have suddenly become obsessed with consequences of things. They used to be obsessed with mere products and packages and launching these things out into markets and into the public. Now they've suddenly become concerned about what happens when these things go out on the highway. What happens when this kind of program gets on the air? What happens? They want safety air, safety cigarettes, safety cars, and safety programming. This need for safety is a sudden awareness that things have effects. Now, my writing has for years been concerned with the effects of things, not their impact, but their consequences after impact. TV, unlike the fantasy world, the escape world of the movies, TV creates enormously serious and realistic-minded sort of person, well, almost oriental in his inward meditativeness. I think
This is the teenager of today.
Yes, he's becoming almost oriental in his inwardness.
He's so thoughtful and serious.
Yeah, grim. Whereas the movie generations of the 20s and 30s were a coon-coated bunch of superficial types, had a good time, and went to college, but not for knowledge and that sort of thing. All has changed.
And changed because of television, because
Very much. Television gave the old electric circuitry that is already here, gave it a huge extra push in this direction of involvement and inwardness. You see, the circuit doesn't just simply push things out for inspection. It pushes you in to the circuit. It involves you. When you put a new medium into a play in a given population, all their sensory life shifts a bit, sometimes shifts a lot. This changes their outlook, their attitudes, changes their feelings about studies, about school, about politics. Since TV, both Canadian and British and American politics have cooled off almost to the point of rigor mortis. Our politics require much more hotting up than the TV medium will give them. TV is ideal. You see, when you've got two experts like ourselves discussing TV, this is good TV because there's a process going on of mutual challenge, discovery, and processing. Now, TV is good for that, and same with ads. If the audience can become involved in the actual process of making the ad, then it's happy. It's like the old quiz shows. They were great TV because it gave the audience a role, something to do. They were horrified when they discovered they'd really been left out all the time because the shows are rigged. Now, this is a horrible misunderstanding of TV on the part of the programmers. But in the same way, most advertisers do not understand TV medium. Do you know that most people read ads about things they already own? They don't read things to buy them, but to feel reassured that they have already bought the right thing. In other words, they get huge information satisfaction from ads, far more than they do from the product itself. Where advertising is heading is quite simply into a world where the ad will become a substitute for the product, and all the satisfactions will be derived informationally from the ad, and the product will be merely a number in some file somewhere. Instead of going out and buying a package.
So you don't need it. You don't need it. It's just, and that's what J.G.
And
Ballard.
And I can tell you that's the reality.
Subliminal man.
When I go through the recycling bins and people are putting in brand new stuff in the packaging with the tags and the receipt straight into the recycling bin. They haven't even opened it. It's like, what the hell is going on here? Look, can I just give me that?
That happens all the time.
All the time. I found this yesterday, right? It's a beautiful vase, right? And I thought, it must be chipped or cracked because it was in the recycling bin. Not a chip or a crack anywhere. There is nothing wrong with this. I don't know who got it and for what reason, but why they threw it. And I ran my hands around the edges to make sure, and there's nothing. It's just.
And you know what the amazing thing is? You always make sure that this goes into another home where
absolutely,
it is used.
It's going to go. It's going to be
out.
used. That's right. It's going to be reused.
Let's keep moving towards the
when
future.
You're talking
What did
about
Terence
the
say?
internet, you realize, we really are mental creatures, and And so we are apparently creating a shamanic dimension that is culturally sanctioned because we say we don't have to take a drug because we're so phobic of drugs. But the smart people know, the pharmacologists and the nanotechnological engineers know that the difference between a drug and a computer is that you can swallow one and you can't swallow the other one. And that's the only difference. And they're working to correct that problem. The drugs of the future will be computers. The computers of the future will be drugs, you know. There'll be patches that you paste on your forehead or the back of your thumbnail. So really, and the other thing is that keeps us calm is that we can see the electronic infrastructure. We can see the phone lines, we can see the boxes and the keyboards, but that's all about to disappear. A very active frontier now is mind-machine interfacing, where, you know, basically by wrinkling your brow and squinting and squirming, you run your software. And the boxes can disappear and will disappear. And we've talked in these gatherings many times about a very obvious future coalescence of technology where what you have when you're 8 years old or something is you have a very small operation which puts something like a contact lens not on your eye but on the inside of your eyelid. It's like a black contact lens, so that when you close your eyes there are menus hanging in space. That's your interface. That's your doorway to the internet. And then you just take off from your jump site out into cyberspace. This is not out of reach. Believe me, if it mattered as much as blowing up little brown people somewhere, we would have it in our hands today. It's just a matter of committing capital investment and resources to do. The keyboard is run by looking at the screen, and the thing is tracking your eye movements. There is no keyboard. Huh? Yeah, it's a biofeedback control of machines, but not little PCs, but world-spanning data networks that are in 3 dimensions.
Is that what David Grush was implying in terms of that technology? Remember, even with the hokey non-16mm from 1947 alien autopsy, they did have the I-beams and they had those hands.
Yeah, they did.
You know, and there has been all this speculation about that technology being transhumanism in effect.
You fly it by, I don't know, some sort of osmosis. You know
now,
what I mean?
A lot of our listeners have been asking us about what are the other countries' connections apart from our own indigenous to this continent. So we're going to go to a very controversial structure that was discovered and spoken about in the 80s called the Gosford Glyphs here in New South Wales. Who at this moment, Stephen Evans Strong, who are incredible researchers out there, are stating are under
destruction.
Under strife and destruction. Now, what I've read, and it's even listed, believe it or not, in a site that I don't trust very much, but I use all the time, which is Wikipedia, which is ironic, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
They've said that the council's gone up there because there's so much traffic going to look at these glyphs that basically they're removing boulders and stones.
They can't do that.
Some people are saying they're desecrating the area.
Yeah, well,
I'm not sure about either or either.
Yeah.
But please go up on the and just punch in Gosford Glyphs, Gosford, and you will see for yourself. You'll find lots of material. Here's one of the controversial images, which is Anubis.
Anubis, yeah.
And supposedly they go back 4,500, 5,000
years ago.
But the point of fact is that it looks like it might have been recently carved. These don't look like the same sort of level of carving of hieroglyphs
no.
we've seen in Egypt.
No, they don't.
They have sent members of the CSIRO
IRO.
Yes, up there. They've sent members from the universities up there that going there are a mismatch of images. Now, I am not a specialist in Egyptian hieroglyphs. Maybe we should ask the incredible Paul Wallace about these next time we speak. And don't forget to go and purchase his books, the Eden series, of which there's 4 now. That man is one of the greatest researchers, the latter-day Eric von Daniken, even acknowledged by Eric von Daniken.
Absolutely.
So there's a little image of the glyphs, the little bit of information that we know about. Go and research them for yourselves. I don't want to throw shade one way or the other. They are fascinating. They have become a bit of a tourist site.
They have,
And it's interesting information. What to make of it? Well, up to researchers like Stephen Evans Strong and other people out there in the field. You need to get out and actually look at these things.
Have a look at them, absolutely.
Now, we have really, this has been, as I said, it's going to be a bit Arthur and Martha, and that's where Dad came into the equation, a bit pillar to post. And of course, we have covered so little at this time, but we've shown
the things that we
quite a few interesting futurist perspectives. And that's our.
I love looking at that stuff because they're, all those people are on the money. You know what I mean?
Oh, totally. I always
especially
thought
Toffler and
if you take
Marshall
into
McLuhan.
consideration people like Sir Oliver Lodge, the Ether, Jung and the Mind at Large,
that's right,
Rupert Sheldrake and the Morphogenic Resonance, we are literally riding the wave of the most known substance in the universe, the cosmos, which is dark energy, dark matter. It makes up more than material universe, yet it can't be measured. It is not material. It has no relevance to time whatsoever. And may be stored in what we've come to know through Sheldrake as the ultimate cloud. The ultimate database, which is the sun and its electromagnetic activity. And we may well laugh, but we should consciously consider that some of the fallout from that electromagnetic activity goes into the source field.
It does.
And is imprinted in the conscious or unconscious thought processes of the masses when they are creating art and popular culture.
Absolutely.
And if we step back in popular culture, we can literally do what Marshall McLuhan was saying. Look into the rear view mirror and find the future.
That's it.
And that's always speculating with these incredible gentlemen. Now, we had a discussion last night about our young, creatively brilliant dancing grandson, Christian, and the fact that he no longer even types into his computer. He speaks into it and he's using AI.
Even the 8-year-old is now doing that.
And I turned to you and said, we're becoming obsolete. That is illiteracy. And you said, no, we're not.
No.
You said it's a new
It's
form
just a new
of literacy.
form of literacy. It's just a new form of communication now.
But my greatest fear is that the number of jobs lost will not match the number of jobs created.
Absolutely. I mean, that is the whole point of mechanization, right? Is to get humans to stop doing, menial tasks, repetitive menial tasks. But there's some things that they're never going to be able to do.
No, in
machines are never going to be able to do.
In the world of independent publishing, where the greatest research on the counterpart to this prosaic, reductionistic culture appears, when it's not under the rules of like major distributors out there that actually have people that they have to lean to and edit sections out and have legal departments come on. Things start to slip through into the truth. So I still believe, and we're seeing a genesis, a renaissance in the printed word, in originally printed material on this subject matter. So I don't think the book is ever going to disappear.
Can I just say one thing too, but
do you keep moving that or
I didn't move that then.
It's moving by itself.
It is moving by itself.
Christopher Noel, we need your help.
Okay. So the thing that worries me about this stuff is, and the loss of jobs, is that every time a job is lost and a machine is put in place, like, my biggest pet peeve is the checkout, the checkouts in supermarkets. So every time they get rid of a checkout person and put in machines, and then the machines, there's 8 machines that one person is directing and controlling. So 8 people are checking out their own, they become their own checkout chicks. Is that those jobs that would have been, you know, paying a person, now we're not getting the payroll tax. We're not getting tax from those people because they're not working. Yet they keep saying that, you know, once we get to a certain stage, nobody's working, everybody's going to be getting a universal wage. From where?
I think they're going to have to reconsider.
No. From where are they going to get the universal wage to pay everybody to stay at home when nobody's working?
Well, that's not going to come, obviously.
Obviously
But I
not. So
think
have
at
they
the
thought
moment-
that out, or are they just going to print money now? Because they're already printing money. I mean, they just print money. There's nothing backing it. There hasn't been anything backing money. And it's just that you can't print
You're
it
often
yourself.
racing.
It's, sorry?
You're often racing.
I am. It's that, you know, the Treasury prints it and then waves this magic wand over it to make it legal
Let's
tender.
not go there, all
Well,
right.
that's what they do. That's what it is, because it's not, there's no gold to back that money up. You know, money was a receipt saying that you put your gold in the bank and you've got this much gold, and, you know, then they can go,
Aspasia,
all right.
You're wearing me and
Sorry.
the listeners. No,
Anyway,
you're
but
beautiful.
yeah, there you go.
You know what? I noticed in the last couple of weeks there were many articles saying that a lot of these department stores now are reconsidering of getting rid of those automated cash registers because of the amount of theft that is occurring.
I'm sure they're factoring it into it.
What if we are going to a very dark period where AI takes over? Literature disappears. Fahrenheit 4, burn the books, Montag,
Yeah.
Ray Bradbury.
Yeah.
And this
Fahrenheit 451.
That's right. This may occur.
Wordsworth, Romney, obsolescence.
You walk into this room at your own risk, because it leads to the future. Not a future that will be, but one that might be. This is not a new world. It is simply an extension of what began in the old one. It has patterned itself after every dictator who has ever planted the ripping imprint of a boot on the pages of history since the beginning of time. It has refinements, technological advances, and a more sophisticated approach to the destruction of human freedom. But like every one of the super-states that preceded it, it has one iron rule. Logic is an enemy and truth is a menace. This is Mr. Romney Wordsworth in his last 48 hours on Earth. He's a citizen of the state, but will soon have to be eliminated because he is built out of flesh and because he has a mind.
You've been under investigation, Mr. Wordsworth, for the mandatory period of 1 year and 11 months. You're found to be obsolete. The purpose of this hearing is to make a finding in the matter and make a sentence accordingly. Do you understand that, Mr. Wordsworth? Your occupation, Mr. Wordsworth?
A librarian.
A librarian. Having to do with books.
Yes, sir. Books.
Since there are no more books, Mr. Wordsworth, there are no more libraries. The field investigators in your sector have classified you as obsolete. Your rights are as follows, Mr. Wordsworth. You are to be liquidated within a period of 48 hours. You are obsolete, Mr. Wordsworth.
A lie. No man is obsolete.
You have no function, Mr. Wordsworth. You're an anachronism, like a ghost from another time.
I am nothing more than a reminder to you that you cannot destroy truth by burning pages.
You're a bug, Mr. Wordsworth, a crawling insect, an ugly, misformed little creature who has no purpose here, no meaning.
I am a human being.
Delusions, Mr. Wordsworth. Delusions that you inject into your veins with printer's ink. The narcotics that you call literature, poetry, essays of all kind, all of it an opiate. You have nothing but spindly limbs and a dream, and the state has no use for your kind.
I don't care. I tell you, I don't care. I'm a human being. I exist. And if I speak one thought aloud, that thought lives, even after I'm shoveled into my grave.
The Chancellor, the late Chancellor, was only partly correct. He was obsolete. But so is the state, the entity he worshipped. Any state, any entity, any ideology that fails to recognize the worth, the dignity, the rights of man, that state is obsolete.
Any podcast that fails to recognize any researcher the rights of another researcher to have a different opinion. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I know what you mean.
We have to be very careful.
Mm-hmm.
And who else better than the original Penguin there, Burgess Meredith?
Yep.
And Rod Serling, someone
Yeah.
we've always loved and canonized, to tell us, what are you doing there, Miss Death? You're nowhere near the end title sequence. You're going all over the shop. Are
just
you okay?
checking to make
and I
sure.
called you your stage name
Yeah,
then,
you did,
which was
Miss
a
Death.
real slip, which we can't use much anymore, and actually comes from a Jesus Franco film. It's a very funny nightclub
It's very
act.
apt for me.
Yeah, it is
Miss
very
Death.
apt for you. But that was a nightclub act in which Franco had a girl in a spider web
That's right.
from the ceiling. But
Yeah.
anyway, we won't explain that. I've digressed badly from our ending there.
Yeah.
And listen, we did want to bring you down because we want to wish you, on behalf of Down South Anomalies,
But can
the
I just say
Untold
quickly,
Radio Network,
here's the
a
truth,
happy new year.
Yes, yes. A prosperous new year. The thing is that
But you're going to get the last word in.
Always. Humanity and people always overcome.
Of course they do. And they adapt.
Always. And they do adapt.
And, you know, there was a great podcast with a couple of Mothman researchers that wrote an astounding book. Go and have a look at Talking Weird.
Mhm.
They're a profound couple. And they spoke about out of great adversity
Mhm.
can actually become this thing where you rise above that
Yes,
trauma.
absolutely.
And you actually do more profound things than you would
With
have
it.
done without that trauma.
Yes,
Now, we
yes.
don't wish trauma on anyone.
No,
But if
no.
it's going to be there, you
Use
need
it as
to
an energy.
use it as a weapon.
Yeah.
The phoenix
Yeah.
rise back up out of the ashes.
It's
I know
always going to be
easily
trauma.
said.
Yeah.
And very difficult for some.
Yeah.
And a lot of people out there have trauma beyond what you and I could imagine.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
But our hearts are with you this new year. We will be going into 2024. Please get in there and support Untold Radio Network. If you've got a little bit of overabundance, think about Doug and that ongoing documentary project that is Legend Meets Science.
Yeah.
Think about maybe purchasing for us an Untold Radio Network t-shirt because we can't afford one. But they're up there in the Untold Radio. There's Down South Anomalies t-shirts.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
you
The last
afford
thing
it?
we need is another T-shirt.
Yeah, it is.
We've got
That's
like
true.
a million T-shirts that we have to get.
We
rid
have
of,
to
but
think
anyway.
of all those people. John with the wrench,
Mhm.
who's just astounding. Uncle Bones 2,
Yep.
Charlotte,
Yep.
Nexium, Ristral.
Yep.
There is so many great people. Malcolm and that
Yep.
Kira. All those people that have been in touch with us and have left
Yep.
kind words on the site.
We
They
really
are
appreciate
aspiring.
it, and we take it to heart. We
And it
do.
keeps us going. Sometimes we go, well, should we really? But of course we should.
We can't stop.
Okay, well, this has been who?
That was me. Don't
Well,
worry.
I thought it was the cat.
No,
then.
no,
What
no,
are
it's
you
not.
doing?
I was just touching your bottom.
First time in 10 years.
Really?
Right? Yeah.
Really.
All
Anyway,
right.
we'll be back next year.
Next
in the
year.
new year, 2024.
Think of us, we're on an island on New Year's Eve, DJing to the masses. And
gonna have
DJing
fun.
on New Year's Eve can
Yeah.
be like executing
Let's
yourself,
not go
really.
there. Let's
It can be really hard when people keep running up and go, have you got Jeremiah?
Was
Had
a bullfrog.
Was a bullfrog, yeah. No, I don't have it.
No, I do not.
Yeah.
And I don't for a reason. But anyway, we'll be back next year, and I hope it's a great one for everybody.
And,
if
you know,
not, we'll get through it.
much peace and happiness to all. And thank you to all the people who work with us on the Untold Radio Network. We are Down South Anomalies, done for 2023.